Welcome to another episode of Two Old Men in Chairs. I'm Corn Strong.
I'm Howard Appel.
We're going to do another music video of Tom MacDonald. It's one that came out last year that I've seen many times, but Howard, you've never seen it.
This will be my very first time for watching
So
it.
Howard's going to do a genuine reaction, and I'm going to help him out because I've probably seen it 100 times. There we go.
Half the country fell asleep, but they scream woke. We're distracted by vaccines and TV shows. Politics, celebrity, gossip, popular, neat quotes. Black lives, white lives, which lives mean most? We only dedicate...
Like any Tom MacDonald song, he starts off, he doesn't even give you time to breathe. He just comes right at you with three issues in the first 5 seconds.
To remember our fallen soldiers, the men and women who died young. But if you come out the closet as Caitlyn Jenner, you're a hero and you get a whole Pride Month. The most dangerous pandemic's propaganda from these clowns. Only mask that's gonna save us is duct tape on their mouths. Don't.
I love that line. The only mask that's going to save us is duct tape on their mouths.
Mm-hmm.
And that, they, of course, are the news media.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do the song Free World and react to that. Unfortunately, because it's only on the album and they haven't made a video yet, it's really not available. We could have reacted to the audio, but that's kind of boring. Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorite songs on the new album, on the Brave album. And it's kind of a trilogy, I think, with the In God We Trust and the New World Order. They're all three of them, the political songs. But he's talking here about the press needing duct tape and how we don't really need masks, which of course I believed from the get-go.
We don't need to defund police, need to defund the media who lies through their teeth like Big Pharma doesn't cure you, dog, cause every patient that gets cured is a customer lost. And big oil runs the world, the only wars to get fought are with the countries who have natural resources they want. Heard him.
That defund the media takes on even more meaning when we talk about, like you were last week.
Right. We didn't know the media was being funded to that degree. That was in our other video, not our music video.
So, I mean, defunding the media could be a real government policy.
Absolutely. And it's kind of interesting, the only wars that get fought are the ones where they're going after the natural resources that they want. You know, I don't know, Ukraine has a lot of natural resources, I guess, unexploited.
Oh, and they are a really large grain producer.
Yeah, one of the biggest grain producers in Europe. And I saw a picture of the map of Ukraine imposed upon the map of America, just to give you an idea how big it is. It's about the size of Montana, maybe a little bigger. It's even longer than it is in Montana. So it's a pretty big area, and it's very fertile. And of course, they've got all the natural gas there because we know that, you know, Burisma was hiring all the children of politicians in this country. There's kind of a war that's been going on ever since 2014 in the eastern provinces, where the Ukrainians and the Russians.
Well, there are separatists there, which we don't hear about. There are separatists there.
Yeah, we don't hear anything about it. But
And if a white man braids his hair and likes rap, he's appropriating culture. But if a white man acts too white, he's white trash. He's a racist, he's a bigot, he's a monster. Let's just have the conversation. Not every liberal is dumb, not all Republicans are racist. The government wants everybody fighting with their neighbors because they know that if we get along, we'll probably go against them.
the line in there that we didn't mention was not all Republicans are racist, not all liberals are stupid. And of course, that would be the common stereotype of both of us. That all Republicans are racist. Because most Republicans are white, I guess. And then if you're a black Republican, then you're even worse than racist. You're a traitor to your race. And we do tend to think that a lot of liberals, or as we call them, libtards, are
they're absolutely
dumb.
Absolutely this stereotype. But
you think we're becoming racist?
oh, I think there's always that element there. It's we don't like to think of ourselves that way, but you probably weren't, but I was brought up in a family that was to some degree racist, to some degree not. I had a grandfather that would pick anybody of any race. I would give him a ride. But on the other hand, the speech he used was, you know.
Yeah. Well, this comes up later in the song, but we can start talking about it now. Whether there really is such a thing as white privilege, because he's suggesting that white privilege is a tool that's being used to divide white and black.
Well, I have to say, and this makes you uncomfortable, I know, but historically there's enough of it that it's a good tool for them to use. The reason it works for them is there is some in the
Oh,
past.
it's definitely politically, it divides people, and that's his point.
But the problem is that is almost everything you apply to the poor black person also applies to the poor white person.
What I'm about to say is going to sound very, very privileged, because I was brought up in a well-to-do family, and we had not one but two black servants in the house. We had a maid, Rosa Brown, who practically raised us, and then we had a handyman who worked outside and did lawn care and stuff, Daniel Fisher.
Yeah. What was your relationship to these people?
I had a really good relationship with these people. That's why I say, I think to a certain extent, familiarity helps you overcome racism.
Right. I mean, versus my case, I had look at the number of hours contact I had with blacks growing up was probably nothing compared to yours.
Yeah, I think people that grow up isolated from each other, socially, suspicion can easily and prejudice can easily grow up because of a lack of contact.
I mean, to have long and deep conversations with black people, I've had them, but it's an uncommon phenomenon for my life.
I had a funny situation, but I went to a prep school in Philadelphia area, mainline area, which was 99% white. But growing up in the 60s, there was starting to be the civil rights movement. So what they did is they had one token black in each class. A class would be maybe 70
like
people.
almost deliberately, which is almost like
they would have one, and usually he, by some coincidence, he happened to be a great athlete too. But
no
not
coincidence really.
But not always. In fact, the one kid that was in my class was not any kind of an athlete, and we both ended up going to as freshmen to Brown University, and of course that was 1968, and Black Power, was all over the place, and it was a very uncomfortable situation because we were friendly because we'd been high school classmates and we were friendly to each other. But he couldn't be openly friendly to me in that context, because at that time the blacks all hung out together. They all sat together at the same table.
So that created a schism between you two.
It created, If I saw him and there was nobody else around, he would talk to me. We would kind of go into the shadows where he couldn't be seen, duck into a hallway, and we would talk. But if he saw me out in public and he was with his black friends, he would walk by me like he didn't know me.
But you didn't have the symmetrical problem. Your friends wouldn't have minded you talking with him, or did you?
I don't think they would have. But I was thinking, when I first went into the Avon Rotary Club in the mid-'80s, I remember one time one of the members got up. He made a very prejudicial comment. I'm not sure if he used the N-word, but it was close. But the reaction of the white Rotarians in the room was not positive.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the mid-'80s, people felt that was wrong. That was inappropriate in a Rotary Club to stand up
well, for one thing, and here we get into this class again, at least in the image, in the stereotype, it's the poor white that uses the N-word. And these people in Rotary certainly didn't consider themselves that class. So you don't do this if you're up here with us.
No, you didn't do that, and people were upset about it. That this guy who maybe was a little more white trashy than the rest of us, had done that publicly. In front of the whole club.
Because
you know how people kind of assume you're racist? They make a racist remark, and they're kind of encompassing you in that remark as if you agree with it. And that's kind of like what happened there is like, by him making that remark, he's kind of assuming that all of us were prejudiced or all of us, would think it was funny, which we certainly didn't.
How do you defend yourself against that? It's like the deep innards of your mind, you start thinking, well, maybe at some level I am racist.
I don't know. Do you know the comedian Bill Burr?
Yeah.
He has a routine about this where when you can see the N-word coming, like you're in a bar and you're talking to some guy and all of a sudden he just like drops the N-bomb, you know? And Bill Barr is very funny. He goes like, you know, you don't do that. You know, you got to feel the guy out first.
Yeah.
Make sure you know that he's racist too. You just don't assume.
Right, because it's something used among racists. You're right.
Racists could say it to another racist, and everything is cool.
Yeah.
But don't assume that just because the guy's skin is white that he's racist. You know?
Yeah, and you can't. And young people of any social class are that word is just off limits totally. Where it wasn't maybe 20, 30 years ago for young people.
That's not a word that white people can say.
No.
Unless they get a pass.
Unless you've got your
if you're with your black friends and they're doing it to you,
or your white trash group, if you're among your white trash
within your
group.
white trash group, you might be able to say
Yeah.
it, but it's not a word that you can say in polite company. The whole world's brainwashed.
Part
Yeah,
of
this was before, of course, the whole idea of mass formation was publicized on the Joe Rogan show at the end of December when he had on Dr. Malone, who brought up the research that was being done about mass formation and propaganda and people being brainwashed.
Yeah.
But up until that time,
So this is 4 months before that, yeah.
yeah, up until that time, it wasn't I mean, we talked
No,
about
it was a crackpot conspiracy theory to say that. And although I had ex-friends that I just wanted to say it to, you're brainwashed. It was obvious to me in February and March of 2020 that these people were brainwashed.
How did monkeys become people and people turned into sheep? They put fluoride in the water that's keeping us all asleep. Claim they want what's best for us, I find it hard to believe. Cause they've been selling us cigarettes since we was 18. Fake news, fake woke, distract and divide. You're either right or you're left, or you're black or you're white. Big tech don't need a microchip to hack in your life. Cause the phone inside your pocket is a tracking device. And I don't...
Okay, a lot of material covered there. You're either left or you're right, you're black or you're white. The phone in your pocket is a tracking device.
What I'm more sick of, rappers or Joe Biden looking like he ate 100 Xanax for dinner. Cause censoring the president and kicking him off Twitter is a bigger threat to freedom than foreign ballistic missiles.
Isn't that true?
Yeah, if you had told me, even like in 2015, that the President of the United States would be banned from common media, I just wouldn't
From
believe
social
it.
media.
Yeah, from our principle.
That's where the Iron Fist truly came out, right before the 2020 election. And they said, we're going to beat this guy no matter what we have to do. And of course, part of that was covering up the Hunter Biden laptop story and censoring the New York Post for accurately reporting on it. And did you see, like yesterday, the New York Times finally came out and said, "Oh,
it's all over now."
It's true. It wasn't really Russian disinformation, even though 50 top CIA retired people, including John Brennan, all came out and swore that it was Russian disinformation and there was no truth to the story of Hunter Biden's laptop having
and they won't face anything. You know, it was obviously a political ploy to keep it suppressed, especially because the timing was horrible for Biden and the election that discovery.
Well, I think they later did a survey and they said like 10% of the people that voted for Biden had said that if they'd known about the laptop, they wouldn't have voted for him. And that would have been enough probably to switch the election, even though probably they could have figured out another way to do it. But when they came out and they said, okay, Trump's off Twitter, he was off Facebook, he was off all social media, that's where these high-tech companies, where they made their power play, and they said, we don't care what it takes, we're going to interfere with this election, and we're going to stop Trump from being reelected. And that's right there where we lost control of this country, led by the high-tech. Right. When I say we, I mean we the people. And it's no longer we the people, it's we the overlords that are going to tell us what we can see, what we can't see, what we can say, what we can't say, what we can think. Or you're allowed to think it as long as you don't say it, I guess.
You know, so whatever the system is, it's not perfect.
They don't have to worry about the 5% of people that actually know what's going on. As long as they can keep the other 80-90% of people from learning about what they're doing. We glossed over the line here, but he said, how do people turn into sheep? You know, how did that happen? I don't know how that happened. It was a slow process, evolution in my lifetime.
Oh, I don't know. People were always that way. I mean, there was always a majority of people that would do what they're told just to avoid any trouble. They weren't not. The typical person isn't a boat rocker. They're, I think it's been true all my life. The population has been submissive. They'll do what they're told.
When I graduated here from SUNY Geneseo in 1977, there was a commencement speaker. I don't remember his name. I remember what he said. He said, most commencement speakers talk about, I'm addressing the leaders of tomorrow, but I'm going to tell you something different. I'm addressing the followers of tomorrow. And he wasn't far wrong with that. He said, most of you are just going to follow along with whatever you're told to do.
There you go.
And I didn't believe it because I knew I wasn't going to follow along.
Oh, I don't believe that we ended up in the last decade or two of our life in this circumstance. We've talked about this all the time. It's just like a bad dream.
Tom brings out these types of long discussions, and we're only about halfway through the
so let's
video,
keep going.
so we'll keep moving.
Police are the government, but you want people giving up their right to own a firearm. Why would you be comfortable if police and the government the only people on the planet with the right to buy a gun? White privilege getting amplified to reinforce division. It convinces white people that they're favored by their skin, and black people getting angry because they're told they're treated different. So the conflict between us and never with the system.
Part I mentioned earlier, the white privilege is being used to create division, and the part that some black reactors can't quite stomach is the statement that black people are told they're being discriminated against, and that makes them angry. And some of them will say, well, we're not just being told we're discriminated against, we actually are being discriminated. And they don't want to let go of that feeling that that life is unfair and they've been discriminated against, which I can understand.
I mean, there are some older people that would like to, quote unquote, put blacks back in their place. But the fact is, blacks aren't discriminated against anymore. And in fact, if you're black, anybody you're dealing with of any race is going to be particularly conscious of not trying to suppress you, because we're all made so conscious of this.
Yeah, my friend that I mentioned that I went to Brown University, unfortunately he's passed on now, but I called him up 30 years after, in the late 90s, after we graduated, and we had a talk, and I found out that he had gone on from Brown University, had gone to law school, and caught the whole affirmative action wave, and become a corporate lawyer, and done extremely well, because how many black attorneys were there coming out, in 1970s?
Yeah, they were looking at him.
They were looking for him. So he did very well. He rode that whole, not that he wasn't qualified, but, a lot of doors were opened to him just because of skin color.
And I mean, and where we are today, if anything, this pendulum has swung the other way. You're disadvantaged to be white. And it's not a victim thing, it's just the fact that that's how things go. They gain momentum and they do swing the other way. There's no prejudice against blacks whatsoever today. Even with this CRT and stuff, it just doesn't fly with reality, because a black can go in and be hired by anybody, and he has probably a better chance.
Well, what I'm saying is, that's what Tom is saying, is that there's not really prejudice, but because you're being told constantly that there's white privilege out there, that some blacks believe it and feel and continue to hold on to the idea that they're being prejudiced. And what I'm saying is, there are certain blacks that I've seen, reactors, who don't want to let go of that idea, and there is white privilege, and I am being discriminated against.
Well, it's psychologically, it's probably, you can see the appeal of it to the person psychologically. They have that to fall back on.
If your life is not going,
you don't have to blame it on yourself. You can blame it on the world.
Blame it on Trump or all the white people in general, that they're keeping.
But,
the man is keeping you down.
But in my life, I've never had any advantage at all. I've always had a real hard time getting a job. I mean, I wished I were black. I would have had a lot easier time applying for the jobs I did, and that's true my whole life. I never felt any privilege, and I've never really had any whatsoever.
I think it's Chris Rock who has a routine. I don't know if you've seen it, where he talks about, and he's in front of a predominantly, comedian in front of a predominantly white audience, and he goes, I've been very successful, I'm famous, I've been in movies, I make millions of dollars. He says, there's not one white person that would change places with me. And he gets a pretty good laugh. And there's a little bit of truth in that. That there is a stigma there that.
I don't know. I think sometimes it's swung the other way. I mean, it's cool to have a black boyfriend among some. It's cool. You got a better chance with the girls.
Here's an interesting thing I was just reading about last night. People have very warped perceptions of what percentage of the United States population do you think is black?
I think somewhere probably between low 20s percentage.
That's too high. Most people say 48%.
Well,
And not only do white people say that, but black people say that.
they think they're almost half of everybody.
Yeah, because I guess if you're black and you live in a black ghetto and all you see is black people, you think, well, we're half the population. 12 now.
Yeah.
It's 12%.
And
So
blacks.
what percent of the population do you think is gay?
Well, they say 10%.
Okay, the actual number, according to the article I was reading, is about 3%. But most people think it's like 30%.
Yeah. They're looking at these weak points in society. White privilege, sexual deviation from the norm is little cracks that they can work at, work a crowbar into and break our society apart. And they
Yeah.
who would even care so much about talking about these issues of homosexuality? I mean, they aren't even that big.
But that's Tom's point, is that, white privilege in particular, in this line, is promoted to create division.
Yes. And there's just enough of it it's hard to deny its total non-existence, but it's like it doesn't govern all aspects of society, and yet the CRT basically says it does.
But the fact is, Howard, that you and I are old farts, and even though we may have enjoyed a lot of white privilege growing up in our society, 60 years ago, we don't believe in it the way the younger generation has been indoctrinated into this idea.
1. Train the people only to consume. Step 2. Infiltrate adults with the news. Step 3. Indoctrinate the children through the schools and the music and the apps on the phones that they use. Step 4.
Indoctrinate the kids
Yeah.
through the music, through the culture, through the phones, through everything. Well, it's the people, like the Hollywood executives that decide what movies are going to be made. Record company executives decide what albums are going to be produced or what music's going to be, promoted.
But I mean, even and people that own banks decide they're not going to loan any money out to the fossil fuel industry.
Yeah,
Pretty
it's a whole group of woke people who think that they can make a better world by indoctrinating people into their left-wing causes.
Separate the right from the left. Step 5. Separate the white from the black. Step 6. Separate the rich from the poor. Use religion and equality to separate them more. Step 7. Fabricate a problem, made a lie. Step 8. Put it on the news every night. Step 9. When people start to fight and divide, take control. This is called situational design.
Pretty good plan, huh?
Is
Separate
it-
the left from the right, the rich from the poor, the black from the white.
Okay, so let's look at this objectively. How much of this is conspiracy paranoia, and how much of this is a real threat facing us in our lives today, or how much of this is just going to go away?
I think it's all 100% reality.
That's a pretty
What's not true about what he just
But
said?
I mean, how many of us are on the other side, and do we have the power to stop this?
Well, there's a lot of people on the other side. It's always a small group that's, holding the levers of power. But the question is whether you can wake up the people who are brainwashed and show them what's going on here. Some people think that this song is a little too optimistic. When the chorus, let's play the chorus one more time.
They can't stop us, because we're ready to fight, trying to brainwash us. But we won't let freedom die. The whole world's brainwashed.
Everybody pick a team, start a riot in the streets.
The whole world's brainwashed.
It's us against them, and then you against me.
Video, great job by Nova Rockefeller. But he seems to think like, we're ready to fight and we're going to be able to beat this. And some people say, well, that's a nice sentiment, but there's no evidence that.
See,
that
we
are.
don't have it a concrete enemy like the people in Ukraine do.
They're not coming in and blowing up our buildings.
Not yet, anyways.
Not directly.
But so it's hard to fight such an abstraction, and it's and they've taken this into account. They want to portray us as conservative, white privileged people who just are trying to hang on to a system that's fallen apart, and we call that system the Constitution of the United States. It's
freedom.
Yeah, it's unique to the world, and it's probably the best governance any society's ever had in the history of mankind. But they're ready to throw it off to some sort of totalitarian thing. The idea is, I remember one guy writing, says, I understand they're going to suspend the Constitution. Like he thought Constitution was something that could be suspended.
It did suspend the Constitution.
Yes. And it just freaked me. The very essence of it was it couldn't be suspended.
It's like the cartoon where they're reading the Constitution. They go, we don't see anything in here that says that if there's a virus, the whole thing becomes revoked. Because it's not there.
I think what's really valuable here, though, is that people in younger age brackets are hearing this, and when they hear this, they may have had thoughts in their mind, but it's suddenly they realize that, hey, it's okay to talk about what I'm thinking about, and probably thousands, maybe millions of younger people.
This is one of his more popular songs. I just noticed when we started that it's got over 12 million views since August.
But anybody that's going to watch this, at least mostly all the way through, is going to be sympathetic to what he's saying. So that's all I can say is that's an encouraging thing that he's doing this, that he's still able to do this, and that people are hearing him and probably being enlightened.
Well, we hope that everything he says in the chorus is true. We hope that people are willing to fight for their freedoms and not give in to the New World Order.
Mm-hmm. But the plan is, of course, to, like you said, boil the frog, gradually take these away. You can see that.
They were boiling the frog gradually, I guess, for many years, but then I think they saw their opportunity. Everything came together in 2020, the pandemic and their hatred for Trump and their control of the social media. They saw their opportunity.